Hi, and welcome to the second edition of my vlog. I'm Andrew, and nice to meet you all. For those of you that haven't seen this before, the format is as follows. In the first half of this vlog, I will use English to tell you about some recent news stories around the world and to give some of my views about them. In the second half, there is an English lesson based on the news stories that I've talked about. Remember, if you like this lesson, please subscribe to this channel to receive further 3 English lessons. So the good news is that this time we're not going to start with this guy, Donald Trump. However, we will still talk about him later because, once again, he has been making waves. We're going to start with a dramatic and sad story, talking about something very odd and rather unfair, which seems like it is about to happen. 2 women, one from Vietnam and the other from Indonesia, have been arrested for the murder of a guy called Kim Jong-nam. This is him below. He's a charming looking character, isn't he? Kim was the half-brother of the leader of North Korea, Kim Jong-un. He was recently murdered at Kuala Lumpur Airport in Malaysia. It is widely believed that North Korean agents, by which I mean Secret Service agents, were responsible for the killing. But it seems that they did it in a very unusual way. They seem to have conned these 2 women from Vietnam and Indonesia into splashing harmless liquids such as water onto the faces of various people at the airport. The women thought they were playing a prank on their victims for a television program, and they did this to about 5 or 6 different people. But the liquid that they splashed onto the face of Kim Jong-nam was anything but harmless. In fact, it turned out that the liquid that they splashed onto Kim Jong-nam was a kind of nerve poison called VX. Kim was put into an ambulance, but he died before the ambulance even reached hospital. The Vietnamese lady is 28, and the Indonesian lady is 25. Both face the death penalty under Malaysian law, if they are convicted. You can see these 2 poor ladies here on the screen. Personally, I feel extremely sorry for them, even though they were naive. Kim Jong-nam seems to have been murdered despite the fact that he did not seem to be interested in trying to replace his brother as the leader of North Korea. So, we're now going to talk briefly about a ridiculous and stupid story, and of course, this concerns President Trump. I was actually going to defend Trump in this vlog over the controversy about the way in which he plans to deal with Russia. But then he made an utterly ridiculous new announcement, which was, I think, his most stupid one yet. And yes, I know there's a lot of competition for that title. Trump has said that he is going to set up a special government agency to investigate and prosecute crimes committed by immigrants. I ask you, how stupid is that? I mean, if somebody were to come up to me in the street and punch me on the nose, then it would hurt, and I would hate that person. But I wouldn't care where the person came from. What difference does that make? This is as stupid, in my opinion, as announcing a unit to investigate crimes committed by people with green eyes, or people with blonde hair, or even, perhaps, people wearing jeans. It's absolutely stupid. Our third and final story that we will look at in this section of the vlog is a very brief, ironic and funny story from here in England. So, here in England, the police have decided to get tough with drivers that use their mobile phones whilst driving, such as this person on your screen now. The police decided to hold a press conference to tell journalists about why they have decided to get tough with drivers about this. One journalist, she set out from her home to drive to the press conference. On the way, she was arrested for, can you guess it? Yes, using her mobile phone while driving. So, it's now time for the free English lesson based on this vlog. Remember, if you like this lesson, please subscribe to this channel to receive more lessons in future. And we are going to start by looking at two things that students often find confusing in English. First of all, let's look at how old somebody is. Let's look at this sentence from earlier in the vlog. The Vietnamese lady is 28 and the Indonesian lady is 25. The key thing to remember here is that you need to use the verb to be to talk about somebody's age in English, not the verb to have. Many other languages use the verb to have, but we don't. Always the verb to be. So he is 23, or the twin sisters are 9. Now, here is the second thing that students often get wrong. Let's look at this sentence about Kim Jong-nam. Kim Jong-nam seems to have been murdered despite the fact that he did not seem to be interested in trying to replace his brother as leader of North Korea. Here is the key thing to remember. If you want to know more about something, then you should use the word interested to describe the way that you feel. The thing that you want to know more about, we describe as interesting. So, for example, we would say, I was very interested, because that's how I felt, about the interesting program that was on television last night. The opposite of interested is bored, and you should say, the boring television program made me feel bored. Okay, so now let's look at some phrasal verbs. Phrasal verbs, very important in English for anyone going to live in an English-speaking country and anybody taking any kind of test in English. So if you're doing a test in English, pay particular attention to this section, because if you can use these phrasal verbs in your tests, you will score extra points. Okay, so let's look at phrasal verbs. Let's look first of all at the sentence below. In fact, it turned out that the liquid that they splashed onto Kim Jong-nam was a kind of nerve poison called VX. In this context, the phrasal verb turned out, or to turn out, means that it was discovered. So it was discovered that this poison was being used. And it's a type of nerve poison. To turn out also has another meaning in English that you should be aware of. It can mean to attend something. For example, all of his friends turned out for his wedding. This would mean that all of his friends came to his wedding. Now let's look at the second phrasal verb that we used in this vlog. And this was to set out. So one journalist set out from her home to drive to the press conference. On the way, she was arrested for using her mobile phone while driving. So you can probably guess from the context what this means. To set out in this context means to begin or to start a journey. Once again, there is also a second meaning for this phrasal verb. To set out can also mean to describe something. For example, if I were to say to you, I want to set out my plans in detail, that would mean that I want to talk to you about my plans in some detail. Finally, for today, let's look at some expressions and vocabulary from this vlog. Let's look at this sentence about Donald Trump. But we will talk about him later because he continues to make waves by doing all kinds of strange things. To make waves means to do dramatic things that cause people to notice you. So people will be like, I can't believe he said or done this, and they will pay a lot of attention to you. Now, let's look at another sentence, this time about the two women charged with the murder of Kim Jong-nam. Personally, I feel extremely sorry for them, even though they were naive. So this word naive, it means that somebody trusts people more than they should do. In this case, the ladies trusted the people that told them that they were making a silly television program that involved splashing things in people's faces. Next, let's look at these two sentences below. Firstly, here in England, police have decided to get tough with drivers that use their mobile phones whilst driving. And secondly, on the way, she was arrested for using her mobile phone while driving. These two sentences use what we call adverbs of time. While and whilst. They mean the same thing, and they both mean at the same time. When you use an adverb of time, you should always put it before the verb unless you are using the verb to be. For example, we would say, I am going to be late. Finally, let's look at these two sentences. Number 5. They seem to have conned these two women from Vietnam and Indonesia into splashing harmless liquids, such as water, onto the faces of various people at the airport. Secondly, sentence 6. The women thought they were playing a prank on their victims for a television program, and they did this to about 5 or 6 different people. So, the verb to con means to trick somebody into doing something. And the expression playing a prank on somebody is to play a joke on somebody. So a prank is a type of joke. So that's it for today's free English lesson. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you do, please sign up to my YouTube channel to receive further free English lessons in future. If you would like a lesson with me in person, live lessons, then I deliver these through the italki website, and you can find a link to my teacher page at the website below this video. If you just click on the arrow on the right hand side underneath the video, it will reveal both that address and also my Facebook page as well, which you can also subscribe to receive updates on this vlog. Okay, if you have any feedback, you can also post comments in the comment section on YouTube or on my Facebook page, and I would be very interested to hear from you all as to what you think about this vlog and if you find it useful. As I said, I suggest that people that are doing any kind of test in English pay particular attention to the new expressions and to the phrasal verbs, because if you can use these things in your tests, you will get higher marks, so they really should be useful for you. And of course, you also need to be grammatically accurate, so the grammar points should also be useful. Okay, thank you, goodbye, and see you next time. Bye.